even petrol alone. Good evening, viewers, and welcome again to Discovering Truth. And I am Pastor Forbes from Abiding Word Ministries, and this will be part 3 and possibly the final part of our discussion, which we started 2 sessions ago. I just entitled it Practical National Priorities, and with emphasis on the word practical, because I know that as you go around the world, people attend all kinds of workshops and, confabs and convocations, and there are all kinds of great names. You'll hear things like multi-sectoral stakeholders, things that even make you dizzy before you start. And then there are rapporteurs, and there are small groups, and there are white papers, and there are communiques. And sometimes you just wonder, when will implementation take on a practical impact that is measurable, tangibly, for the average ordinary citizen like yourself, like myself, to feel, that there's been something. I remember the first time, I think a few months ago, when our government, that's the new government in the Gambia under President Mr. Adam Barrow, announced that the price of petrol and diesel and kerosene was coming down. We could feel that. And then it came down again. I think it's come down 3 times. And I can personally say the amount of money that used to fill the tank of my car is less now. So those are practicable, measurable, tangible results that you can clap for, wondering why it had not happened earlier on. But let's move on. So we're looking at our practical national priorities. The things that make you stand out in this world will be your priorities. And those stem from your understanding of your purpose. In my line of work, we'll say your calling, your vision, the mandate of God for your life. What makes a car company, a tennis player, a bank, a church, a school, a restaurant, what makes a mechanic shop, what makes a particular hotel stand out, is because of what they have worked out as their core competencies, their primary purpose, their vision, their values, their mission, that gives them the edge above every other person in that same field of endeavor, which is good because it gives them competition, but it just tells them that if you're going to really be the best and you're going to be a master in this field and you're going to really sit on top of your craft, then there are things you need to know. And I believe that's where vision was birthed. That's where mission statements come in, and that's where core values come into play. Let me pause to remind you that in just about 14 days, Abiding Word Ministries will be starting our 4th decade, year 30 to 39. And yes, believe it or not, I remember that very small Sunday morning, 5th of November, 1988, in a YMCA classroom. We all sat on tables. It was just 8 of us. The rest is history now. We want to invite us all to join with us in our convention. We call it Destiny. So this is Destiny 2017. It's from Tuesday, the 31st of October, and it will run through every day till Sunday, the 5th of November, each day at 6:30 p.m. in the evening. I know you are seeing the adverts. They're on social media, they're on GRTS, and the radios, and flyers and invitations and wristbands for us all. And the theme this year, and I want to almost suspect that it will stretch, because God has given us in our hearts the theme called the Berauka. It's spelled B-E-R-A-C-H-A-H, but it's pronounced Berauka. It's the baraka, it's the blessing. It's the same word in many, many languages, in Mandinka, in Wolof, in Kiswahili, in Hebrew. It's the blessing. And it's good to know that God is looking at us. And when we look at what has happened in our country, the Gambia, over the last 10, 11 months, we can see it's the blessing of God. It's scary to even think as to what could have happened and what by the plan of man and maybe even Satan himself, as evil as he is, we would have probably been IDPs and EDPs living in camps and having food rations and all the things that come with that, sexual exploitation and all the things that come with trauma and war. And some people say it takes about 25 years for nations to rise back. God just blessed our country and has kept us where we are. And we as a church want to say amen to that and minister that to ourselves and to our country. And God has blessed us with somebody who is gifted to give that, Pastor Nkechi Ene, a very personal friend of mine, and a host of a very popular program in Nigeria called Fresh Dew, which hopefully become on GRTS, a popular program. Fresh Dew, Pastor Nkechi is coming, and a great singer, Myro Ese, Namisi Okon, of course, I don't need to tell you, Sweet Perfume, myself, and all of us will be there. Please join us for the Berauka, for the blessing, October 31st, right through November 5th at our church premises, the Gateway. You won't regret coming, I can guarantee you that, by the mercy of God. And so, when we come back to these three words, vision, mission, core values, as relates to our practical national priorities, there are questions in my heart again to us all, to me as a Gambian, to you as a Gambian here in the diaspora, and to people in the Gambia and people outside who watch GRTS or watch YouTube uploads. The question is, what do we plan to achieve? How do we plan to achieve it? And when do we plan to achieve this? Everywhere we go, we are talking about the new Gambia, the new Gambia. Obviously, there are signs of a new Gambia. Around this time of the year in our church, we spend a lot of time praying for quite some time, more than 30, 40 days. And this year, we are going twice a day. And I remember last year at the same time, you wake up at 5:30 to go and pray in the church at 6 in the morning. And sometimes from where I live to the church, there were like 3-4 checkpoints. People asking all kinds of questions. And I remember once telling a particular PIU that we are going to pray for this country. And indeed we were. But it's a joy to know that you can make that journey and there's really nobody harassing you. And people can drive, some people jog, stroll to the church. And that kind of Gambia that we had is coming back, even though it's coming anew. Not to say that all is well, but at least there are indications that we can make it well. Because you see, if you've been somewhere before and you've done something successfully, the ability to do it again resides in you. Because what it took for you to do it, except you have forgotten. And so, yes, there are things that are rising up, but, we never want to rest on our laurels or oars because there's a lot more we have to do. So the new Gambia has to couch its vision, has to couch her core values and her mission statement. And when we do that, I really want to counsel that we need a zero tolerance on a couple of things. As I said, our small size as a country is not a disadvantage. People think it is, but we are not the only small country in the world. Just a few days ago, I was watching on BBC that a little island, small island, St. Helena, they finally opened their airport and the first flight has landed there. They hardly even have space for a runway, but business will boom. And so if St. Helena has their act together and they can do it in such a way that Facebook headquarters goes there or Microsoft headquarters go there, everybody that wants to do business will be going to St. Helena. And once that happens, then people begin to see what was an impossibility or a size barrier. They begin to see it as an opportunity to create something. So a place that was accessible just by shipping lines now is accessible by air. And you can start using cable cars and so many things that people are using. You go to some places in the world, in South Korea, in Tinapa, Nigeria, you can use cable cars. And so we have to really zero into what we really want to do and have some national non-negotiable, so that we are known for them. I keep talking about Singapore, Malaysia, and the Bahamas, because they are known for certain things, particularly Singapore. You know, we all know when you go there, no matter how much you want to chew gum, you're going to wrap that gum and put it in a litter bin. Why can't we do that here? Why are we suddenly finding plastic cups of water all over the floor? Why are we finding the bits of watermelon being thrown from taxis? You know, because people video things now, that could be how we are known. And this is not exceptional. It's almost becoming ubiquitous, at least in the towns. So what can we zero in on as non-negotiables? When we look at the things that are befalling us, you know, sometimes you hear, for us Gambians, I know other countries may laugh at us, but some of the values we are hearing as per monies used illegally, you know, from people that were supposed to use it for the goodwill of the country, the amounts are making us dizzy. So what are we going to do at the end of all these revelations in terms of financial management? What are we going to do in terms of using proven principles and policies to forestall what happened? What are we going to do to make sure one person does not have so much power and people who, albeit probably benefit from keeping that person in power? What are we going to do? Because it's all Gambian. The people who are non-Gambian are few. The critical mass is us, it's you and I. What are we going to do? Many years ago, there was a particular African nation that instituted a ministry, and they called it the Ministry of Ethics. I'm not too sure whether they can be held up now to what they, at least the idea was there. Can we consider that? Because we have the ombudsman. I'm not too sure the function of the ombudsman, whether it goes into both civil service and the private sector. But when you think of a ministry of ethics and ethical behavior, could this become a requirement for managers, for leaders, for ministers, for permanent secretaries? Not just a course for people in the university, you know? Because at the end of the day, it's easy to say I swore to oaths of allegiance, office, and secrecy, and really I looted. So how do we make sure that this new Gambia doesn't go that way? Because it's not one person that did this. We have to remember, it's not one person. Systems are not broken by one person. So what are we going to do? How are we going to maintain our checks and our balances? Because we talk about all these things. We have workshops, we have experts flying in, and we have certificates of participation, and we fly out, and we have per diems, and we do all that, you know. But what about implementation? Practical implementation. Almost every other week we hear workshops about law enforcement, people being taught about human rights and all that. I thought that was a given. But all right, maybe in the last dispensation it was in. How are we going to implement that? Does a law enforcement personnel understand that the woman that he might slap could be his sister, his mother? Would he allow that to happen to her or his daughter? And all such things. But something that I really, really want to talk about today is the story in the Bible between two brothers. And the brothers were twins. And they have a story which is a lesson to nations of the world, particularly, excuse my language, third world nations, which include ours, the Gambian, and most of the continent of Africa, unfortunately. There was a woman who was struggling to get pregnant. And finally, when she got pregnant by her husband, the pregnancy was a bit traumatic. And she asked God a question in the Bible. And she said, to put it in everyday English, why is my own different from everybody else's pregnancy? Why is it so? Why am I going through this? And the answer she got in her heart from God was this: what you are carrying are not two boys. What you are carrying are not just twins. But the scriptures say in the book of Genesis, the first book of the Bible, what you are carrying are two nations. And it continued to say that two types or two manners of people will be separated from your womb. And unfortunately, the prophecy was that the older will serve the younger. And so the two boys were named Esau and Jacob. Esau was the older one by minutes. Jacob was the younger one by minutes because they were twins. But to cut a long story short is that Esau, being the first child in that tradition, meant he was the heir apparent. So the blessing of the father in twofold, called the double portion, was his own. And everything of the father's was his own. And the father was rich. The father was a grandson of Abraham. He was Isaac's son, Abraham's child of promise. But one day, Esau, who was a hunter, and Jacob, his brother, who was a farmer, something happened that turned both of their fortunes around for life and generationally. And that's why it's important the decisions we make when we are in authority as leaders, particularly leaders of nations. We sign deals, we sign agreements, and I've said this statement before. I want to make it for those who have never heard it. You never sacrifice the long-term, the permanent, the long-term generational on the altar of today's satisfaction and immediate pleasure. Because what happened was, one fine normal day, Esau was hungry. But he was a hunter, and he could catch game, and he could cook well. So instead of waking up and maybe suppressing his hunger and going to the field, catching his game, coming home and cooking it, he turned to his brother and negotiated his future away. And his brother, being smart, told him, before I give you what you want, sign over to me your birthright. Because the brother knew that if I can get his birthright, everything that will be generationally his, long-term, will be mine. He cannot see that, but I can see it. He cannot tell its worth because he thinks it's intangible, but I can tell its worth. I know what land can do. I know what property can do. I know what monopoly in trading can do. But this person cannot see it now because he's hungry. His hunger has blinded the reality of his generational blessing. So let me make a deal with him. And for some very strange reason, Esau agreed. And Jacob, his brother, told him, swear to me or put it in writing and sign. Sign. So when he signed, he handed over. A transaction happened, which was going to become law. The second bit of this story is one day their father is about to die. He knows he's going to die. And he calls Esau, the hunter, and he says to him, please, can you catch game? Prepare me one of the soups that you do so well and bring it to me so that I can eat from your hand, so that when I eat and I am satisfied, my soul will bless you. It's almost like saying the Berauka, that you'll be blessed with the Father's blessing, that wherever you go to, wherever in this world, you will be blessed. Your nation will be blessed. Your company will be blessed. The Father's blessing, you won't need to fight and struggle. I will bless you. Unfortunately, the wife had a faith. And that was a dysfunctional family. And the wife, I think, loved the junior boy, Jacob. And the father probably love the senior boy. So the mother and wife called the junior boy and said, quickly go and get this food. Because of time, I can't explain in details, but if Jacob, who was a farmer, was able to get food and kill it, or get an animal and kill it and make soup quickly when the hunter had to go into the field to catch, I keep wondering what kind of a hunter was he, that he had to be going to catch every day, and he had not groomed what he had caught, so that when destiny called upon him, when the Berauka blessing called upon him, all he had to do was go behind his backyard, catch one goat and kill it. But he had to be doing it all the time, because there are people, there are families, there are companies, there are nations. We do it all the time. We want a new project vehicle. We want new computers. We're going to buy new machines all the time. We are buying new things every time. The questions are, what happened to the ones last year? Why were they not kept? What about maintenance culture? So by the time this Esau went into the field to catch an animal and clean the animal and cook it and season it and bring it, Jacob had gone around the corner. How come the farmer was able to get food and the hunter was not able to get it that fast? And so in the Bible, the wrong son, if you like, came and gave the father, and to cut a long story short, the father blessed him. No sooner had he departed with the blessing of the father, which is not a blessing you give 2 times, that Esau came and said, my father, I have brought the food. And the Bible says that the father began to tremble. In fact, it uses the word he trembled exceedingly, because he knew he had been hoodwinked. And he said, but how come I just gave the blessing? And then Esau knew that he had lost the blessing, and he cried and said, my father, bless me. Is there not another blessing? Just bless me, just bless me. And the father said, I have blessed your brother, and he's going to be bigger than you. You're going to live to serve him. I can bless you, but it's a lesser blessing. Now, people are quick, those who know this story are quick to call Jacob a crook, a trickster. But if we take a second look, when you want to negotiate your land, negotiate your future, and you want to fell down trees that have been planted over 50 years, and you are going to contribute to global warming, you are setting in motion a cause that you'll have to reap from. So long story short is that Jacob got the blessing and Esau had to serve him. What does that say about us? It says that even in politics and even in national life, in global politics, the nations of the world are divided in 2 halves. There are Esau nations and Jacob nations. Esau nations have the ability, the raw materials, the cocoa, the gold, the oil. They are in Guinea, in Sierra Leone, in the Gambia, in Ghana, in Nigeria. They are in Lesotho, Botswana. They are in DRC, Guinea, Liberia. They are all over the world. But for some reason, we all live the Esau life. By the time we are supposed to bring our game, the Jacobs have come. The Jacobs are able to use our cocoa and sell us our chocolates. They are able to use our diamond and sell us our wedding rings. And they are able to use our oil and sell us things. And every Jacob nation knows how to cook stew so well and bring added value to you, and all you have is raw material. And that is why in very critical terms, Gambia, we cannot blame an investor, because an investor comes with a Jacob mindset. He can see that you are hungry. He can see that you are going to give him 50 hectares of land for what you do not know is under the ground. And he's going to come possibly with things that you are not ready to give time and energy. He's going to be patient. He's going to be patient. And may I be allowed, please give me latitude tonight. Let me make this statement. The Bible says sowing and reaping is a law of life. If that is true, and it is, each one of us knows that every seed that you sow, every form of sowing in this world, the seed is infinitesimally small in relation to the fruit. So whatever you sow is small. A smile, you sow a seed, a corn seed, but when you harvest, it's big. So when an investor comes and is sowing his seed, we are smiling because, we really don't have this money. But when the fruit comes, every fruit, every outcome, every product, every result is always 100 times bigger than the seed that was sown. And here is my statement. He who sows into your life, she who sows into your life, Gambia, has every right to expect to reap from you because they sowed. It's a principle that God put in the world. So if I am sowing, it's a matter of time. It is my right to reap from you. And when I'm reaping, you may not like it because I'm reaping millions and hundreds of dollars and thousands, and I'm wiring money and I'm shipping currency to my business, to my country. You may not like it because it's like, then they take we couple. But you are an Esau. You can do it yourself. You can do it yourself. If Esau was smart, Jacob would never have taken his blessing, but he sold it. As a matter of fact, in the Bible, when Jacob told him, give me your birthright, he asked the question, what use is my birthright to me? What use is Nyambai Forest? What use was Kotu Quarry? What use is Katong? But you saw the use. Esau's are unable to negotiate properly long term. Either we do not have the skill or we do not take time to develop the skill, and we always out-negotiate ourselves generationally. I am told there is a particular family in a particular country that negotiated with a particular soft drink company that every 30, let's say, cents of that country's money would go to that family for every bottle of soft drink that that company produced. And they probably made that arrangement in the 60s or the 70s. Ladies and gentlemen, that is about 40 years ago. So such a family can just sit down and they're having royalties for every bottle. And this is a company that is known all over the world. The drink is known everywhere. Where you cannot find water, you probably find that drink in a village. That is a Jacob mindset. But an Esau just said, well, we need it now, we need it now. Ladies and gentlemen, if we're going to say new Gambia, an envisioned Gambia, a Gambia with a mission and core values, may we come to that place where our Gambia is bigger than cars donated to us. Our Gambia is bigger than buildings that are going to be built for us that we might not utilize. Our Gambia is bigger. There are generations coming. So we must be able to negotiate properly so that we do not shortchange ourselves, outplay ourselves out of this game and wonder why. Because no investor is coming here to lose. And let me repeat my statement. He who sows into you has every right to expect returns, rewards. And let me use the biblical language. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and overflowing. What they can get, we can get if we make the right decision. Until I come your way next week, by the grace of God, this is Pastor Forbes saying we need to work out what our practical national priorities are. One of the good things about the Barauka Convention in Abiding Word is that you'll hear things that will help you. October 31st to November 5th, Pastor Nkechi Ene, Myro Ese, Namsi, Okong, Abiding Word Choir, you're all welcome. We'll see you. God bless you. Have a good evening and good night.